1986.
86. What I want, Dad, is I'd like for you to tell me first time you ever saw a car. What you remember about that.
Well, the first time that I ever saw a car, we heard it coming. We couldn't see it, and it was probably a couple of miles from our house, and we were out in the field a ways, and Emmett and I, we made a run for the road, and I tripped over a barbed wire, and cut a great big gash in my footstep.
Yeah.
And the scar is there today. It is.
Yeah.
I'll show it to you.
Do you remember what kind of car it was?
Yes, it was a Maxwell with no top.
Oh yeah.
And no doors. Only had oval places, to step in on both sides. And all the controls was out on the side of the car.
On the side.
Yeah. And you had a great big old rubber horn. When he got even with us, he mashed that horn. And it actually scared us, We'd never heard one.
You didn't know what it was.
No, it was really loud, too.
Yeah.
And so he had on one of these here caps with it, and he didn't have it buttoned under his chin.
Yeah.
And it was flapping like that. But I'll tell you one thing. Whenever you mashed that horn, you could rope your eyes with a grapevine.
Was the car painted?
Huh?
Was it painted?
Red.
Oh, red.
Blood red.
Oh.
Yeah, it was blood red.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know did I tell you what model, what kind it was?
Yeah.
Well,
the Maxwell.
Maxwell, yeah, it was a Maxwell. And a 2-cylinder.
Oh, 2-cylinder.
No, that's all I had, 2 cylinders.
Well, did you cut your foot very bad that day?
Well, yeah, I cut a long gash about, it was 1.25 inches, I guess. But I didn't pay much attention to that. I was so excited, over that car. I wanted to see that car. Because the first car I'd ever seen, I'd seen pictures of them. But I never saw one up, close.
Yeah.
We didn't get too close to the road, but I was just a little bit scared of it.
Yeah, you were scared.
And of course, after that, there wasn't not even one car in the town. Our closest town was Albee, Texas. And the first I can remember, the first ones that got a car was the doctor. And of course, up until that time, the doctors they either went horseback or in a buggy, and if it was real bad rainy weather, they went horseback. That's the only way they could get out of, because they didn't have no gravel road. You
and Papa did some traveling in a covered wagon.
Oh yeah. That was before I can remember it very well. It was before I ever started to school, and I can remember that we passed through country that there wasn't no wood, and Dad would give us give me a sack and tell me to pick up ketchup.
Oh boy!
That's what we used. Now we had a covered wagon and a stove in there, and all of our clothes and everything, and we traveled there for several days. Of course, there was areas there that we struck wood, but sometimes we was in an area that there wasn't no wood, so that was the next thing to wood, is the ketchup.
Tell me about that other one, Dad, about Papa in that hired hand of his that he had? That you told me one time.
Oh, that's the one that.
That he scared him.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dad and his mother had over 800 head of goats.
Mm-hmm.
Angora goats. The one that has the long, it's wool.
Yeah.
And he hired this guy to go with him, and because they were going, I think 50, 60 miles from home for better grazing. And this guy was a fairly young guy, but Dad, after he got down there, he got to telling him about being panthers down there. So it kind of buried on his mind, you know. And that night, that day, Dad had killed a deer.
Mm-hmm.
And he crammed the hide over in an old barrel drum he had there, you know.
Yeah.
And until he could go bear him, you know. And so that night, Dad decided he just give him a little scare, you know, just to have a little fun, you know. But it was turned out to be pretty serious. He ties a line to a tree and runs it to the wagon after night now, but the guy had done gone to bed in the wagon.
Yeah.
And he tied this line there, and so in the night, Dad woke him up. Said, "There's something in the cow." And what do you think it is, Wade? He said, "Well," he said, "it could be a panther, or most anything." And he says, and he looked out, and Dad said, "Yeah, I see him. He's in the cow." He said, "You take the gun." And the reason he told him to do that, because he had his hand down where he could pull this rope. Pull that. He had this deer hide. Had the deer hide on the rope, and he was coming right towards the wagon. And well, he had one of these automatic rifles, and he just said he just comes to open it up, you know, and he just letting the bullets fly.
Mm-hmm.
And he's shooting right at it too, of course. And so finally he got so excited he just threw the gun down. He said, "Wade says you take it." He said, "I know I hit him." He said but I haven't phased it. He said he's still a coming. Yeah, he said he's still a coming. And that he done seen he was so scared that he carried the joke a little too far.
Yeah.
And so Dad just took the gun and he just fired one time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I got it. I knocked him down." He said, and so he told him that need to worry now, because he said, "Not likely all this shooting and anything else will come around tonight."
I was scared of everything.
Yeah. So the next morning, before day, Dad gets up and he goes gets that hide. He said that hide was full of holes. Yes, that old boy, he didn't lie about it, because he said, "I know I've hit him," he said, because he just keeps it coming. But
it's just like Papa, huh?
yeah. But the thing of it was, the joke was on Dad in a way, because Dad needed the help.
Yeah.
And so the next morning, the guy hadn't said a thing in the world about. He got up and he went out and he seen all this blood. He dug some entrails around, bloody entrails, you know, and make it think, you know, that he'd shot that, whatever that was, in the cow. And he said, "Well, Wade," he said, "I can see where the blood all out there," he said. said, we bound to hit him. And and he went on and had his breakfast. And he had his own horse and saddle, you see. So he said, well, Wade, he said, I hate to tell you this, but he said, hell, he said, I wouldn't live in this country at all. And he said, I'm going in. He said, I hate to leave you, but he said, I'm going in. And, well, Dad knew that if he told him, he'd get mad. And so he let him go because so that's why I say the joke was on Dad in the long run.
It backfired on him, huh?
Yeah, it backfired on him because he lost his head.
Boy.
Dad was always playing pranks that way on people.
Do you remember anything about your grandfather and grandmother?
You mean Grandpa Bice?
Yeah.
And Grandma Bice? Not too much, Jimmy, because I don't know, on that trip I was telling you about, we come in the covered wagon. We come by there, and we stopped off and stayed a while there. And you see, that was before I'd ever started to school, so I wasn't around them too much. But I do remember, what I mean very well, remember his old home place there, and 9 miles from Rosebud, Texas. And and I can remember when he would, it was on a Christmas, that, and it had been raining for days and days, and he couldn't even get, nobody could go in a wagon or a buggy.
Yeah.
And he told us kids, he said, well, he had to go horseback. He told us kids that he's going to go try to see old Santa Claus and see if he couldn't arrange and bring us something. But he said, I don't know. He said, whether we'll be able to see him or not. But we was awful concerned about that. But sure enough, the next morning, I mean, after he went to town, he come back after night.
Yeah.
And he had sacks, gunny sacks, and had them tied on the horse. His mother told us later, you know, that he tied them on carried them on the horse that way. The only way he bought us a lot of stuff, and we had back in those days, you hung our stockings up the fireplace.
Well, now, on Mama's side is where the Indian blood is.
Oh yeah. Well, it was Grandpa's side. What do you mean, Grandpa Bice?
It was Bice.
Yeah. His daddy was a full-blood Cherokee. Full-blood Cherokee Indian. He couldn't speak a word of English.
Yeah.
And but he would come over a lot of times when Grandpa was gone. However, I don't remember whether Grandpa could speak any Indian language or not, but I'm pretty sure that he could speak some. But Grandma couldn't understand a word, and all she had to go by was signs and grunts.
Yeah.
You know, he'd grunt and point this, you know, and point the kid.
Yeah.
And she'd understand, and he'd take the kids and take them home.
Yeah.
And then he'd bring them back late in the afternoon, and have them dressed up in the Indian garb. And the boy, the boy, he'd have him with a chief suit on, with the feathers down the back. You know how they drag the ground, you know.
Yeah.
Well, he was very much an Indian. And his hair, they said, stood straight up, which Grandpa Bice's hair stood straight up.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was no way to comb it down.
Hair,
it was just like a horse's mane.
Yeah.
He stood straight up. And but he's awful unruly hair.
Yeah. Well, did Mama tell you any stories about About him, I guess she would remember.
Grandma, you mean the Dad's mother?
Yeah.
Well, now, I can recall one time that Grandma Adkins, which was Dad's mother, she married again after her husband got killed, Grandpa Threadgill. She said that she was just a young girl, and she remembered one time they seen the dust rise, and there's a big lot of Indians coming. But they were just traveling through the country, and it said 3 and 4 in breast, riding horses. Said some of them were, I don't know what to call the name of them, like to have the poles.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And they had their tents and things like that stacked on that, bundled.
Was that down in Texas?
Well, yeah, it's in Texas. Years and years and years ago, yeah. And it had to be because Grandma was just a young girl, you see.
Yeah.
And if they were living now, my goodness, they'd be way up there. See, even my dad would be over 100.
Yeah.
And so she said that sometimes they were driving cattle too. Said they had horses and cows, and I said, well, where did they get all them cows? She said, well, they stole most of them.
Along the way, yeah.
And which I imagine they did too.
Yeah.
And
that's something.
That's about all I knew about. You see, and I never did see my Grandpa Threadgill because he was killed,
Okay, well, just a minute here, okay? Well, I'll think of something to ask you.
Okay.
Maybe you could.
Oh yeah, we could tell when we first moved down to Texas.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Yeah.
That was an interesting story.
Whenever you get ready.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Go ahead and start talking.
Well, we moved down to Texas. It was either in latter part of 1906 or 7. It had to be a long time.
You wasn't very old at that time, were you?
No, I had never started school. So we moved into. My dad had bought a place, 63 acres of land, but no house on it. And so he had to rent a house, and the only house that he could rent was a part log house and part lumber house. And it had a stick and dirt chimney.
That was old, huh?
Oh, yeah. The only one that I ever remember seeing, Dad, of course, had seen a lot of them, stick and dirt chimney. And so we lived there till he got a house built on his land that he bought. He bought that. When he got that, he paid about $4 an acre for the per acre. He had 63 acres. Said he'd run about that. However, Dad had been a barber, and had a barber shop, 3 chairs.
And he had a pretty thriving business then. Huh?
Yeah, he had a good business, but they'd had a 7-year drought, and that run him out of there.
All of his customers left. Huh?
Yeah, and that's when he got out, and when he was riding on a train, and he was headed for East Texas, and he met a guy on the train. Dad was telling him about his barbershop and place of business, and he was telling Dad about this land he had down in Wood County.
Where's Wood County at?
And so they got up a trade.
Yeah.
And I think Dad had to give some boots, money. But anyway, they traded sight unseen. neither one. He'd seen Dad's barbershop, and they stopped off the train and went to Fort Illinois Republic and made the deal.
Was that a common practice back in those days?
People, back them days, it would sure be dangerous to do today, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I should say.
Because they might not have that power,
Now, this isn't when Papa moved up to Cleveland, is it?
No.
This is
No. No, we lived there, continued to live there on that place. Like I told you, the first house he built was, we called it a shotgun house. It was this long building, and there's only 2 rooms. And believe it or not, the neighbors over the country, they all met this certain day. Dad had all the lumber there, and they put the building up in one day.
Boy.
And but Dad didn't have windows, and we ended up. In other words, he didn't have the money either.
So you went without windows for a while.
He buys ducking, cotton ducking, and they nailed it over the windows. And we lived in that house for, I'd say 5-6 years, and then well, yes, we lived in there more than that because we never bought. We bought a house in town, and it was after World War I. Just was after World War I. And we bought a house, and Dad, he takes the roof off by sections. He'd tear the shingles off like that and just saw right down and take it in sections, the roof.
He just cut it.
And he put that house back, just like it was built.
He moved it?
He moved, no, he tore it down, but he put it back, naturally you'd have to, because we had to move on with the wagon, you see. But he could tear the roofs that way because he could lay them flat on the wagon. And he moved that 4 miles, and he put it up, and it looked just like the house that was sitting there. So Dad was pretty fair carpenter.
Yeah, I should say it'd have to be.
I couldn't put up nothing like that at all.
You can tear down one pretty good.
I can tear them down, but I can't build them.
Well, now, when did you move to Cleveland?
Well, we moved to Cleveland. We left Alvy, that is Dad and Emmett did. We left just a few days before they left, Of course, we had kinfolks in Cleveland.
Yeah. When you ride a train?
We was going to stay there till Dad traveled through in the wagon.
Oh, he is in the wagon?
Yeah. And we left there, and they did we all left in 1920. But in 1920 is when we left Wood County. And we moved to Cleveland and bought a house and lot. And so Dad, he run a wood yard there, and he would right back to Wood County, and he had guys that would cutting cordwood and shipping it with a carload. Dad and have it shipped on the train.
Yeah.
By a carload. And Dad run a wood yard there for quite a while. Of course, back in those days, there was still a lot of people. We had gas there, but most of the people used wood.
Yeah, with burning wood and
or coal.
Yeah.
So a little later on, he happened to strike a juryman there that had a farm, and his name was Dietrich. And he was getting up in years, and so he told Dad, he said, "What you need is take them boys and get out on a farm." He said, "Let me trade you this farm." And they he took this here town property in on the place.
On the
Yeah. And we give $3,000 for the place. That is, it comes to that in what I mean, the trade, you know, and all. It was $3,000, and that old, you know, didn't have enough to pay for it all. No, but as years rolled on by, why I helped him. I don't think any other boys ever helped. I know they didn't send him down, but I even later years I come to California and I sent him a payment on his place from California.
Well, did Papa just do farming out there once he moved out? He didn't have any
you
business?
can imagine a barber going to farming. He didn't know nothing about farming, and especially he had come kind of adapted to it there in East Texas.
Yeah.
He could plant in the water fur. And he got up there in Cleveland, and he done the same thing. He planted in the water fur, and the sand was covered up.
Yeah, because that was all sand. Yeah, that whole area
it worked fine down in East Texas. But he didn't work so good up there.
He had a pretty hard time making a living at farming then. Huh?
Well, he did. And actually he had a hard time making his payments too, you know. And so he said, I've got to study up something. And he said, I'm thinking about planting some berries, blackberries and dewberries. And he said, they ought to do good here. And so he ordered some plants, and blackberries and dewberries, and we set them out, and boy, they really did make good. And so he ended up with better than 30 acres of blackberries and dewberries, and that's when he made his money.
That's where Threadgill Berry Farm.
Yeah, that was called the Threadgill Berry Farm, and there was the only farm there wasn't, a berry farm there wasn't in Texas, in that area there, in Johnson County, we'll say. There was no other. And we'd haul berries up Waxahachie, Texas, and Hillsboro, and all the towns, and Dallas. Our main market was over in Dallas. We'd go there on the market there and sell them there in Dallas. Sell whole loads at one time.
Yeah, whole wagon load.
Yeah. And if you had a certain time that to get off of that marketplace, you back right up to where the people could come, you know, in town, right in town.
See the merchandise.
Yeah, there's a market like for the farmers. But if you wasn't sold out, well, then you could get out and peddle the rest of it out. Anything that you raised, well, you had the right to peddle it, which I don't know whether that works now or not,
whether
but
they
it did then, you know. So that brought him, soon paid his place out.
Well, did Papa build the first house out there?
Not Cleveland? No, it was already there.
Oh, it was already there. Huh?
Yeah. But after we all had, all the children are married, and away from home, well, in fact, we'd been to California a number of times, but we come back, on a visit, and we were down in town, and the house caught fire.
That's when it,
yeah.
burnt
And
down.
The boys was out there, Jerry and Jack, and however, Jim and Shirley was pretty small, you know, and they wasn't out there. But them two boys had saved more stuff than they did, because they was wringing their hands and running and trying to put out the fire, and there's a high wind.
Yeah.
And they couldn't.
That's the one that caught in the roof, huh?
It caught up in the roof, up in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And so that ended them, and we had a small house, and they built onto it, you know.
Yeah.
It one they built for Emmett, you know.
Yeah, the little one.
Yeah, and we lived in it too, ideas.
But Papa never did rebuild his another
No,
big
never
house,
did
huh?
rebuild it.
Yeah.
No, he just kept building on to that,
Yeah.
that little old house.
Yeah.
And
It was a shotgun house
it
too.
was worse than a shotgun house. You'd have went much further, you'd have got off somebody else's land.
Yeah.
he kept building it longer, you know. Yeah.
I remember there, when you walked through it, you went through where their bedroom was, the stove that was in there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but Dad, well, actually he wasn't able, you know, to build it anymore. He was done them bad health.
Yeah, he was getting old by that time.
'Cause,
I know I used to remember all of the shoes and refrigerators that he had stacked out there.
Yeah, you just had walking room on the trails through there, you know.
He must have had a good 1,000 shoes out there in that one barn.
Oh yeah. Yeah, poor Dad. He really thought that was really the thing, all right. But,
well, the first time you left the farm, did that when you went hoboing?
Yeah, I did. I got to hearing about California, you know, L.A. That was all everybody.
That was
LA.
big time, huh?
And I decided I'd go out there. And I probably had maybe $15 or $20, but you know, money that them days, that $15 or $20 went a long way.
Yeah, that was a lot of money.
And and I traveled on the freight, but I had just a little bit over some of the hobos. I had a union card, Farm Labor Union.
Oh.
Yeah. I had joined the Farm Labor Union there in Johnson County, you know.
That got you jobs then, huh?
And they accepted it. Waitmans didn't look at it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe the guy standing there with you, he didn't have nothing.
Thumb him off.
Stay off. Yeah. So I had it pretty good.
Of course, you didn't have it good all the time, did you?
No, not all the time. No, I had some rough times, and I had pretty good times. You know, I stopped at El Paso, and that was the first time that I ever took a drink.
It was in El Paso. Huh?
Yeah. And it like took my breath.
What, whiskey?
I'll tell you, I thought that was big, you know. Me, I walked up to the bar, you know, there, and this other guy was met hoboing too. He's up in years, you know. And, that was over in Tijuana now. I went over. We went across the bridge over Tijuana, and I walked up there to the bar, you know, and I seen him. He turned it up that way, you know, and I turned it up that way, and I'm telling you, it like took my breath. Now that was all there was to it.
Did you just have one drink or two?
I just had one. That was all I wanted. I thought, well, if I take another, then I'll sure lose my breath.
Yeah.
So I didn't want no more whiskey. It cost 25 cents.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And this other guy, I said, you want a drink, I'll buy you a drink. But I said, I don't want no more.
How old were you then?
I was nearly 19.
Yeah.
Yeah. I weighed 162 pounds. About the most I ever weighed. So we went on to California. When we got to California, why, I didn't have too much money because I'd meet up with this guy and that guy, you know, and I'd never been on the road before, and I'd buy them a feed, you know, and maybe probably them guys had more money than I did, you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't have but just a little bit of money, and I got there and I got me a good meal, and I remember it was I went to a cot house and got me cost me 10 cents.
Yeah.
To get a cot. Next morning, it was right next to a cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked there on the window. It says ham and eggs and a cup of coffee, 20 cents. And so
probably a pretty big breakfast then.
yeah, but anyway, there was a fellow there that the only one guy and was in there. All the rest of them had done got up and went down. This guy, I talked to him up there, you know, but I come on down and I was just standing there and he just come by and hand me a silver dollar.
Mm-hmm. Boy.
And then I thought, well, I'm going good now. I went on down and went to the employment office, and they call it pre-employment office. And boy, I'm telling you, I stood there all day long, and they'd call off jobs, you know, and you see hands sticking up all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But they never got to me, and they never got to nobody anywhere close to me. Come to find out, those guys was buying their job.
Oh.
Yeah, they were buying them.
You hadn't learned that trick yet.
And when I did find out, the guy told me, he said, now listen, I'm going to tell you, he said, I know what I'm talking about. Now, he said, I'll tell you what I can do. You want a job, said, I'll get you a job with the Los Angeles City Water Works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said, I don't care where it's at. I said, just so I get a job. I said, I'll do.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, have you got a bedroll? I said, no, I ain't got no bedroll. Oh, he said, well, I don't need no problem. He said, we'll fix one. And he got a big bunch of paper and wrapped it up, you know, and tied it with the cord, you know, and put it over on my shoulder. And I'll bet you it wouldn't weigh a pound.
Yeah.
And so we went over there and got the job.
Oh, you got the job, huh?
And I got out there, and it was the commissary was on top of the hill,
Mm-hmm.
and it was better than 500 feet up there, and they were building a big reservoir in between these mountains,
Yeah.
you know.
That's right up from L.A., huh?
Yeah, it's right up from L.A.
Okay. Just one moment, Dad.
Yeah.
We'll have to continue this discussion.
Goodbye until next time.
On the air again, Dad. Go ahead and start with your story.
I'll wait till sure.
Huh?
You'll have to wait till that starts, don't it?
No, you can go ahead and start right now.
Oh,
You can even say the date if you want to.
I'll go ahead. Well, you mean I'll go ahead and say April the
Yeah.
19th, 1987.
Yeah. We're going to be continuing our discussion now from our last time that we talked. You can go ahead and with the L.A. story.
Huh?
Go ahead and start with the L.A. story.
Okay, like
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they were building this reservoir in between they were in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
This reservoir was to, in case of shortage of the water coming through the main lines, they'd have this reservoir to run the big generators for 8 hours. They could run 8 hours off of that reservoir.
Mm-hmm. Was this a government job? Was the government paying for that? Was that during the like the Depression or something?
Well,
or?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, but
Mhm.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was.
So how long did you work up there?
Well, I worked up there about 5 months,
Mm-hmm.
and I run electric tram. I hauled all the material up to the commissary on top of the mountain. Our commissary was up on top of the mountain, 500 feet high.
Yeah.
And our sleeping quarters, or what I mean, our tents and everything was up there, big tents. we slept in at night.
What, did you sleep for 5 months up there?
Huh?
Did you stay for 5 months up there in the tents?
Oh yeah. We stayed right there. Well, no, we worked below.
Yeah.
But at the foot of the mountain, 500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so our work was all down there at this rock crusher.
Yeah.
Where they'd crush rocks, and then what sand it went one bin, and the rock in the other bin. And so that was my job, to crawl up there, and a lot of times the chute would be stopped up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when I turn it on at the bottom, why, it'd be stopped up.
Yeah.
And I'd crawl up there and take my drill and stand on the running timbers across.
Yeah.
Which there was only about 18 inches apart. And of course there wasn't no danger as long as I didn't happen to step off.
Step in there, huh?
But at one time, while I was, it happened early in the morning, that I crawled up there and I turned the chute on, and nothing come. They just, I had to go up and take my drill.
Yeah.
And I went ahead and drilled through, and she still didn't break loose. And I had my drill working it up and down,
Mm-hmm.
to loosen it, you know, so it dropped and filled my car under the bottom. And it all come at once. When it did, I must have had my heel in the edge of the sand, and I fell in.
Oh no!
Yeah, I fell in, and I remember how hard I tried to hold on to the drill, because it fell across. You see, the timbers, and I was trying to hold on. And later I found out it twisted hide out of my fingers, trying to hold on.
Mm-hmm.
But the sand the wet sand pulled me on in.
So you went right down inside the hopper.
I went down and covered up.
Oh boy.
And well, I could see a feel, you know, of me smothering. Mm-hmm. I knew I was smothering to death.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is it. And but of course, when they found out that I wasn't, I didn't come back down, somebody come up and seen I was
stuck in.
They couldn't see me because I was covered up.
Yeah.
With sand. And so they went right away. They went to digging me out, and they dug me out and revived me. They was working my arms this way, you know.
Yeah.
And
did you breathe?
And getting dirt out of my nostrils.
Yeah.
Wet dirt out of my nostrils.
Yeah.
So it bucked me too, and then now that was before they called the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got a big idea of their own, just young guys, you know. They hadn't been working there no, maybe not as long as I had been working. They got an idea they could run me through the chute.
Oh, great.
And I said, no.
Yeah.
It's got a cross piece.
Mm-hmm. Where you'd been stuck.
I knew. Then I thought, well, I'm going there now. And they just went out ahead. And
they opened it up.
And they put a nail keg over my head.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, they'd done that to keep the dirt from getting back and stopping up the nostrils.
Yeah.
And so they run me down there, and no telling how many feet under the dirt I was.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, if that I could move my feet just a little bit, I can remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But I could feel sweat running down. You know, I was smothered.
Yeah. And the weight of the dirt didn't crush you. I said, "Is one."
And this weight on my shoulders.
A lot of weight
then they said I was all bruised up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And where they had tied ropes around me and tried to pull me out of that there, you know, for a while.
Yeah.
That was before they put me on down.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, they seen they couldn't get me out. And the boss come down. And boy, he made every one of them get out.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "You're doing more damage than you're good." He said, "Every time you boys move around here, you're causing more dirt shipped on him, and he's getting more weight on him."
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that was, he told me all that. Of course, I couldn't hear that because
mm-hmm. You were too deep in
I was buried.
Yeah.
But he told me that later, the boss did. He said that he had them to go to the cook shack, and you seen these long steel dippers that they dip stuff with.
Dip soups and stuff like that.
Kitchens, yeah.
Ladles.
And that's the way he had to reach down and dig dirt out like that.
Boy, must have took a long time.
And they get me down to where it was up to my knees, and they still couldn't pull me out of that. They put rope.
The wet sand.
And made loops over my shoulders, under my arm.
Yeah.
And they rope burnt me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he said I probably went down past my knees before they ever could have been able to pull me out of that there quicksand, wet dirt.
Yeah. Boy.
So that was a close call for me there. And I was pretty well ready to leave in a few days. I told that guy, I said, I can't go with this here no more. He said, well, we'll give you some other job. And I said, no, I think I'll get out of here while I'm alive. But anyway, they put me in a hospital. Kept me there for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And they got these bruises and burns, rope burns, you know, where they tried to pull me out. And they give me alcohol baths.
Mm-hmm. You've had lots of accidents in your life.
Quite a few accidents.
Let's go back to the when you did you cut your ribs one time? With,
I did that in the swimming. I mean, in a river.
Mm-hmm. Tell us that. Yeah, tell me that story.
You want me to tell that?
Yeah, let's tell that.
Well, Mother and Dad were. That was when we were living on the farm, and they were off, and we had some of the neighbor boys over there, and we all went down to the swimming hole, and we had some deep water, and at that time I couldn't swim, and so we had some a 2-gallon stone jug, and we put carts on them, and tied them together with a rope, and then lay on them, and then we could
paddle around on them.
Yeah, go out in the deep waters, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out in the deep water that way, and one of the jugs, I guess the stopper had come out, and I managed to get back to where there's shallow water, and I had the jugs on over my shoulder, the rope, the 2 jugs, and I slipped, and them jugs bumped together, and it broke one of them, and it broke just like a knife, and that heavy jug brought the light one up, and it ripped about a 3.5 inch cut over my ribs.
Yeah.
And I could see my ribs.
What did you have?
Big hunks of fat hanging out.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, they were hanging from on the outside, and that gas, it just opened up.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
probably a real clean cut.
Yeah. And there was, and so I was really scared. I looked down and seen that big cut place, and so it was just about 40 feet off of the road to the, and I took right up the road for house. I never even put on my clothes.
You had your clothes off.
Look, nobody didn't pass, but it wouldn't have made any difference anyway because I was headed for home.
Yeah.
And I got there and I was just sitting with a towel wrapped around me, holding this together. And I guess it was 30 or 40 minutes before Mom and Dad come in. And it was just a little while before night. So all that that was out of question, it's 4 miles.
To go to the doctor.
And in the other night, so they waited till the next morning to carry me to the doctor. And I rode on the horseback behind Dad on the horse. And I remember how sore I was, because that was swelled up,
Yeah, I could imagine.
And the doctor said, well, let's go. I'll have to sew that up. And he took 4 stitches, I believe it was. Yeah, 4 stitches in that place to close it.
Yeah.
And I remember that seeing them crooked. They had crooked needles.
Yeah.
And they crook. Yeah, they go up and it was a gut with the thread,
Yeah.
Of some kind. I don't know what kind, but anyway, that's what he said it was. And they sewed that.
As large as that scar is, it looked like it would take a lot more than 4 stitches.
Well,
to sew it up.
I'm pretty sure that
really
was
large.
all it was, the 4 stitches.
Yeah.
And I know before it was over with, I bust out the middle stitch, running romping.
Yeah.
And forgot about it, and
was this
busted one of the stitches out, and they had to go back and have it sewed up. Take that one stitch.
Was this before the horse kicked you or after?
Oh, that was before the horse kicked me. Yeah. Well, then in 19 and let's see, that was 19 and. Grandpa Bias died in 1950. Now it was in 1914. His dad and mother got him a car, a Model T touring car, and so they were going to make a trip back there to see Grandpa Bias. He lived in Hamilton County, and. So they left me and Albert, youngest brother. Albert was about 8 years old then, 8 or 9 years old. He stayed with me, and Emmett went with Dad, and that was Dad and Pearl, Sister Pearl. They went to Hamilton County. And that same day, early one morning, they left early one morning, and this boy come along about 12 o'clock, a neighbor's boy, Davison boy, and I'll never forget it, Paul Davison. And he was going to town in a buggy, and he says, why don't you and Albert come go with me? Well, we decided we just ride down there with him. And we went down to Albie, and he got his groceries and things, and we started back. And it must have been 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And on the Well, way back, we'd only out of town about a mile, I guess, out of town. He popped the horse with a buggy whip, and the horse kicked a big hole in the dashboard. So he laid the whip on him now, and the horse run away, and he dropped the line.
Yeah.
And he just had one line, and when he seen he couldn't do nothing, the horse was headed for this timber. Why, he jumped out of the buggy, and Elbert fell off. And he was riding on the back end of the buggy, and he fell off. And I'd have been better if I'd have fell off. But
jumped off.
I reached it in time to get the line, and the horse was still kicking. Every once in a while he'd kind of slow down and he'd kick his feet back up. And I guess about the time that I reached for the line, one foot hit my head, and the other hit by the side of my ear, and just peeled the hide off, the hair, just like you'd have shaved it.
Right alongside your head.
One side, just like you'd have shaved it. It's a hoop. So, and then I can remember still. I knew I'd got a terrible lick in the head, and actually, I still knew what I seemed like I was in a trance, and I was walking, trying to find back to the road. I got back up to the road, but they had carried me a different way. I had blood in my eyes, I couldn't see nothing. And so they were trying to get me through a fence.
Oh, great.
Up to this fellow's house,
With
and
with that
barbed wire
hole in
fence.
your head.
And I got through it. I can remember that very well. I crawled through that fence. And then this here neighbor was a fellow by the name of Jody McCook. And so his folks, they run and got a pallet and put out on the porch. And it was awful hot weather, and so whenever they laid me back, that was the end of it. I never knew no more.
It's when you
She had bled in and
on
on the stripping in my brain, and that addled me. She completely. Before I was like that, was bleeding, and it wasn't. They could see the stripping of my brain.
Yeah.
And it bursted right down by the side of my nose, and right at the corner of my eye. It pushed this all in. And the two pieces, the skull where the horse's hoof hit, it pushed them plumb on the inside, and it was laying on the stripping to the vein, or laying somewhat close to the stripping. But this piece here, up over my eye, they raised it back up on the operated on me at Greenville, Texas. They carried me 40 miles in the back of an old model Buick car.
Yeah.
And they carried me, and I never knew nothing. All that aroused. The doctor said I never did arouse. And they went ahead and they operated on me and took this all out and raised this part back up, and it knitted back this way.
Yeah.
They said you could have stuck a baseball right in that hole.
It's crushed something.
What I mean, it was with this pushed in. You see the top skull here. But now I woke up the next morning, and the first thing I wanted was water, which I didn't get. Because I had they had given me ether to
make you sick,
put me to sleep, and they couldn't give water. They said and this all happened the day before at about 1:30, and we was hurrying up to get to one of the neighbors' house then to get get a drink of water. We were thirsty. And you can imagine how thirsty I was when I did wake up. Well, actually, I would ask and beg for water, but they'd say no. Well, I could see this big pitcher sitting in a big bowl, and I reached when the nurse was out. I reached over and got a hold of this here pitcher, but I couldn't lift it up. I was too weak. I had bled so much, you know. I was in such a weakened condition. So I said, well, I'm going to get some water some way. And I got over and just turned the pitcher over, right over on the side of the bowl. And the water was running out into my mouth. And I got all the water I wanted.
Yeah. Did you get sick?
Oh, was I ever sick. And then that nurse knew what it was, too, because she seen the pitcher turned over. And so I don't know. I guess the doctor got after her about that. But anyway, I was the one that, and then it caused it to go to bleeding, you know.
Yeah.
Straining, vomiting, you know. But and about 2 days after that, this here boy's daddy come over. Paul Davison's father. He got on a train and come up there to Greenville, Greenville, Texas. And he said, Wesley, where about you, your daddy and the mother go? Well, I said, I don't know.
You forgot. Huh?
And I said, I just can't remember. And so I guess anybody got a lick like that on the head, but it's a wonder I'd ever remembered anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, I could talk with him and knew him, but I said they're visiting some of the folks. I said I don't know who it was, and so in the meantime, some of the neighbors remembered that mother had a father and mother lived at Hyco, Texas, or Carson, Texas. That's Carson, Texas, and so they got on the phone and they called the sheriff department there in Carson, Texas, and they wanted to know about a Bash that lived there. They said, yeah, there was one that lived out from Carson, 4 miles, and the sheriff come out there and told him, said, you have a boy that he had a telegram, said that you got a boy in the Greenville hospital, and they didn't know what had happened, nothing about it. So they get him in the car and head for Greenville. And the minute that Mama and Dad walked in the hospital, I remembered them where they went.
Where they was at.
Yeah, and I asked them about Grandma and Grandpa, and it seemed like everything come right back to me when they come in.
Right at that time.
And but they couldn't carry me home because I still was in bad shape. Yeah, and I'd been there about a week.
Yeah.
And before they ever knew anything about me being hurt.
Well, how long did you stay in the hospital?
Huh?
How long did you stay in the hospital?
I stayed there about 3 or 4 days after that, and then they put me on the train and they met me there at Albee.
Brought you home, huh?
Yeah, and brought me home. So next time I went down to Albee, I was sitting in the car and still have a bandage on my head, you know. And so Dr. Farrington, my doctor that carried me up to Greenville, he come out and he had a little jar with some liquid, it was alcohol, I guess, or something like that. Anyway, you had those two, that skull in the.
Oh, a piece of skull.
It had that skull in the, and it was oval shape.
Mm-hmm.
And right down through the center of the skull, it was a zigzag where the hoop had hit. You see.
It broke.
But it stayed in that alcohol for a while, then it come apart.
Mm-hmm.
It was the inner skull and the outer skull, and they come apart.
Yeah.
And I was went up to a place there about 40 miles from there, and I had them in those pieces of skull in my pocketbook,
Mm-hmm.
and I lost them up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now, did you hurt yourself that other time when all of you guys was riding down in a wagon and went over a bridge or something like that?
Oh yeah, that's
That was
another time
yeah.
that we floated. Daddy had Dad and Mother, they had a rubber tired buggy,
Mm-hmm.
and we had been doing this for quite a while. We carried this here to a big hill, and we take the shafts out of that buggy, and we tie a rope, and
So you
that
could
was
steer
our
it.
car. And so we had lots of company because the boys all around the country would come up there,
Mm-hmm.
and to get the ride down that long hill and cross that bridge, and we just do that all day long till we knew about what time Dad and them come in, and boy, we'd carry that in and put the shafts back in. But that day, while we got to letting, we got so bold about it, we didn't, we could guide it good, but we got to letting other guys guide it, and we let a guy by the name of Henderson. He wanted to guide it, down the hill, and so we all started down the hill, but Elmer said, no, he said, I don't want to ride with him steering it. But we all of them rode it. They was hanging all over it, sitting in the seat and standing up on the axles,
Yeah.
Here he come down that hill, and he just making it fine till he got just as you started on the bridge, he hit a chug hole like, and the buggy jumped up. When he come back down, it landed about middle ways of the buggy and slid till he got it.
What, on the railing?
Slid on the railing of the banister of the bridge, and there was big trees, willow trees growing up, and they were just barely, you could see the tops of the limbs, and that much of a drop. And that's all that saved our lives. Is that buggy turned over, why it landed in this willow trees. Well, you never saw as many stove up kids. There's no broken bones now.
You fell down through those trees.
All that bunch, there was nobody that had broken bones, but Emmett, he got hurt the worst because a stub and the willow stuck him in the top of the head, stuck a big gash in the top of his head. And but boy, there was no fixing that buggy. I'll tell you, it broke the wheels off. And
did it stay up in the tree, or did it fall down?
It finally went on to the bottom, breaking limbs and everything, and went on to the bottom, and so did we.
Yeah.
We went on to the bottom, but it broke our fall, because that was all of 30 feet, at least 30 feet. But he kept falling and breaking limbs until he got to the bottom. There wasn't much buggy left.
What did Papa say about that?
Oh boy, listen to that. He didn't whip us for it, but he knew it wouldn't do no good anyway when the buggy was.
Yeah, he was probably already whipped up enough.
Pieces, But he didn't give us no thrashing over it.
Boy. Well, now you got also did you get hurt out in the oil fields too one time?
Well, No, I like to.
That was in Odessa, I believe, wasn't it?
You mean being gassed? I had some pretty close calls on gas in tanks.
Yeah.
I like not have made it out of the tank, but I got out in time. But
well, didn't you fall off the back of a truck or something?
Oh yeah, you're right, yeah. That I was in a game truck, and they were loaded down too many, and I had to sit on the out edge of the truck, and he's going down the highway about probably making 35, 40 miles an hour, maybe more, and some way or another he hit a truck hole and it bounced me out. And boy, it actually it never broke no bones, but I'll tell you, it really did skin me up. And they put me in the hospital. I was in the hospital for several days over that.
Yeah.
And outside of that, why, but I've had some pretty close calls in my life.
But didn't you, what about when you fell off the building? Didn't you fall off a building here in San Diego?
Oh, I was running a nozzle. I was a nozzle man, a gunite machine. And some way or another, and I was up on the third scaffold, 3 stories. And they had a new gunman that run the machine, you know, and he undoubtedly when he let it run out, and then he built up pressure, and he kicked me off of it. It backed me. I couldn't. There was no stop
right
to
off
it.
of the side.
It backed me off, and when I fell, I rolled back on, and I see how. No, I hit it when I rolled off the first one. And the next one it broke. The game
broke right through it.
When I fell on it, it broke, and that stopped the fall. And I went on down to the bottom floor there, and it broke several ribs, and so that was in the hospital for quite a while. So I had some pretty close calls in my lifetime.
I guess your closest call was there when you got burnt.
Huh?
I said one of your closest calls was probably when you got burnt, was it?
Yeah.
Tell me about that one.
Oh, about the
when you got burned up in Cantura.
Yeah, that there was my closest call because he killed the other guy who was with me. Yeah, we had dug in factory business. They were building a room onto a house, and they had to move. I had to dig another cesspool. So we dug a cesspool right beside, out ways from this other line, and but anyway, we dug down by the side of a line that run to all these here. They had 7 big 30-foot tanks where the sewage would run into from all the whole town. But this here had bled gas into this hole that we was digging. So we had dug there all day and finished this hole, and then those holes had to be lined with redwood.
Timbers?
2 by 12. 12-inch tube of 12. And it was, in other words, wet lumber. In other words, whenever you drive a nail in it, you could just see the water fly. And they were awful heavy boards. But anyway, we had got this hole finished and had built the side end forms. We built them on the outside. And set them down in, and then we had to crawl down in the hole, and then connect them up with the end pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this already. But I got just a little bit ahead of the story there. But when I come out that morning, I had told my boss, I said, I smell a gas. Oh, he said, he can't be gas over here because we ain't got no gas lines over here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's peculiar. I said, I can smell gas. And he'd come over and he said, you know, he said, I smell that gas too, but I don't know. He said, it might be a leak somewhere else, way out or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And, but it was so strong that we both smoked cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he suggested we better smoke cigarettes, get out of the hole.
Yeah.
And smoke our cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And which we had done all that day. And so then when we crawled down in this hole now, we was going to connect up with our end pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And why, I pitched the ladder out. Mm-hmm. And we was in a 7-foot 4-inch hole, which no one could have got out without a ladder. Yeah. We didn't need no ladder because we had a guy that was coming to us to hand us the board.
To hand him down?
Yeah, to hand us the board down to us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yonder he comes now. And I said, well, we don't need this ladder, will we? And he said, no. I just pitched the ladder out. And while I was, I was moving those end pieces around, you know, getting them placed just exactly like we wanted them, you know. Why, he undoubtedly, unthoughted, lit a cigarette, or struck a match to light one. But I said, I don't know, all at once, explosion. And the blaze was going clear to the top of those trees.
Mm-hmm. Which they were
eucalyptus trees, tall
they
trees
were
too.
30, 40
and,
feet tall.
You know, that's lots of fire when they was going up and scorching them limbs up, leaves up in there in the trees. Mm-hmm. Well, I grabbed my hat. I had a felt hat, and I put it on my face. Mm-hmm. And so I knew we was in a bad predicament.
Yeah.
I thought we was a goner, because I could see him when I did look, you know, through under my hat. Well, I could see him and see a hat, his clothes burning off of him.
Mm-hmm.
And they wonder why that mine didn't. Well, I had on brand new khaki shirt and khaki trousers. Never, first time I wore them.
Yeah.
Brand new. And but when I come up and see that, I go down. Every time I went down, I got relief.
Mm-hmm. Going down to the bottom of the hole.
Yeah, down, and I was wallowing in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
And that fire was so hot that I could hear that lumber popping. You could hear it crackling.
Yeah.
That heat drawing the sap out of the lumber. And he was begging. I could hear somebody, please, help me get out of here.
He
had his hands up.
Yeah.
And well, and that scrambling around in the bottom there, you know, and rolling around and trying. Because I knew there's something burning in the back.
Yeah.
And which I learned later was a big red handkerchief. It was in my hip pocket. It caught a fire. Mm-hmm. And so they anyway, while I was in that scramble there, down there, this here end piece fell on me. Mm-hmm. And there was no way of getting out. What I mean, I tried to get out, but it was too heavy.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in the mud too, you know, and so, but still I knew what, I could hear people talking. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, this guy had come up and and got him by the hands. He had his hands up that way, and they got him with his hands and jerked him out of there.
Jerked him out.
And they said, "Where's John?" And said, "I don't know," but said he's in there. And of course they couldn't see me because they went all to that there end piece of that.
Was it still burning at that time?
Huh?
Was it still burning at that time, the hole?
No, it was going out only there was a 4-inch flame coming out that pipe. You know, they was shooting right clear across it.
Yeah.
Coming out of that there main line. And so I kept wiggling around till I got out. And I come out, and so they put the ladder down, pushed the ladder in there. And when I caught a hold of the ladder, my hand stuck to it. That ladder was red hot.
Oh boy! And
gee, I turned it loose. And so they reached down and pulled me out. And so they set us under the shade trees there, and we were waiting for ambulance there.
Yeah, you waited for quite a long time, didn't you?
Huh?
You said you waited out there.
About I guess 2 hours or better.
Yeah.
And so finally then the ambulance did come, but I want to tell you about. I'd look over at him, and it was an awful sight. He had strips of hide, it was 5 and 6 inches long, hanging off of his arms this way, and they were spraying some kind of stuff on him, and they come over and try to spray me, and I said, "No, spray it on him." And, you know, I was burned bad too, but I seen what they done. He tried to break and run, and that guy was holding to him and he's twisting hide off.
Skin right off.
His skin off. He just turned loose and string. So he could talk, and so could I. And he said, "John," he said, I took some sleeping tablets, and said, "I want you to take some of them." And I finally took those tablets, you know. And but anyway, they got the ambulance started, and they started off, and the motor died. They turned on the air conditioner, and then the motor died. And they had to finally get somebody to pull the ambulance off. So we was quite a while before we got to the doctor. The doctor said we had done going into shock. And so he said, going on the way down there, he said, "I'm not going to make it, John." "Oh," I said, "Yeah, we'll make it." "Oh," he said, "You might," but he said, "I'll never make it." And sure enough, he didn't. He died about next day after that.
Yeah.
He died. And
that was probably your last bad accident. Huh?
Well, that was the last bad accident.
Well, boy, you had quite a few.
Yeah,
in
I
your
had
lifetime,
quite a few.
haven't you?
Jimmy, I had quite a few close calls in my lifetime.
Well, one more story I'd like to hear you tell here before we close it off is about the puppies and the whale.
Well, yeah, I kind of hate to tell that too, because I couldn't have been over 2.5 or 3 years old. That was a long time before we ever come
just
to
a baby,
Albany, you know, and I never went to school after we got to Albany. And we had a little small dog, had 5 or 6 puppies, and so what possessed me to do that, I don't know, but I walked to this cistern and I looked in there, and I had one of them puppies in my hand, and I just dropped him in there, and I stood down and watched him, and he swam around a little bit, and then directly he'd start down, you see little bubbles coming back up.
Grounding it.
So whenever the bubbles would quit, I'd go get another. And I put every one of them pumps in there. It looks like a person that could remember anything like that back. He'd know better than to do anything like that. But I did that, and what percent did he do it, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Did Mama catch you doing it?
Huh?
Did Mama catch you?
Yeah, I was asked. I think I got every one of them but one pup, and I was going for that, and then, and she wanted to know what I done with them. I told him, I said, I put them over there in the water, and so they were done drowned, you know. Dad had to get them out.
Yeah. Oh boy, that was a mess. Okay, well, I guess we're going to close it off for right now.
Okay then, Jim.
Okay?
Yeah.
No.